Yesterday we had a church retreat, and I kept thinking about the question of why do we come to church? Now, many of us would say that we come for the great community. We find support here when we're having a hard time. We laugh together. We find love. Many of us would come for the great music. Thank you. Or the opportunities we have for our children. Many of us would say we come for the uplifting worship that can help us feel good. What you will almost never hear, however, when we ask, why do you come to church, is that someone says they come to be challenged. Or you almost never hear that they come so that they can have everything they think they know turned upside down. Now, there is no doubt that church, especially University City United Church in particular, is a great place to find community, to find support for wherever you may be on life's journey. UCUC is a place filled with great music, as we heard today, where we find kids running around doing the things that kids do, and there are ample adults helping to surround those kids. And we find worship that does indeed bring us joy and can help us feel good. But today, as I was looking at the scriptures this week, I just kept thinking about how these scriptures are a little bit risky. This past Thursday, I was downtown with the religious leaders of San Diego, and the Rabbi Devorah Marcus was sharing with the gathered group, and she said that the Torah readings are assigned for their faith community each week. And she said that Jewish people believe that the Torah readings are assigned for the week. It's never an accident. Well, whether you know it or not, we are reading from our lectionary readings, which are our assigned readings for the week. And our two readings that you heard today, not the poem that was last, but the reading from Micah and the reading from Matthew, are the assigned readings for the week. And they are not an accident. But I don't know if you heard it, but these are not exactly warm and fuzzy scriptures. Now, despite the fact that many people will tell you that Micah 6:8 is their favorite verse, and you can have it calligraphied on your wall or embroidered on a pillow, because it's exciting to talk about Micah 6:8 and what God requires of us. And I've had lots of folks tell me that the Beatitudes are their very favorite scriptures, and that's great. But have you read them? Because they're a little bit risky. They're risky not because they're going to hurt us, but because they have the capacity to rattle everything we know to be true. Now take Micah. That last verse I said, 6:8. What does the Lord require of us but to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God? Campers sing songs about it. We see it on the wall places. But the whole setup to this one verse is God having an argument with the people of Israel and saying, you people are not getting it right. And then we get the answer. And it's not this sort of fluffy verse, but instead God simply says to Israel, says to us, it's very simple. Do justice, love kindness, walk with God. Sounds good. 3 little things. We can remember them. Really easy. But it's risky if we do those 3 things all the time. And what about those Beatitudes? Now, these are Jesus' first teaching moments in his public ministry. And he has the disciples that he just found on fishing on the seashore, walking with him, and they sit on down for Jesus' first sermon. And he gives them a list of who is blessed. Now, as David Luce, Bible scholar, tells it, this is not a list of how to become blessed, nor is this a list of how we might bless each other, but rather it's a way for us to put on blessing goggles and to see who God has already blessed. Now, in Jesus' sermon, it doesn't exactly spell out what does it mean to be blessed, right? It just sort of says, blessed are they. So we have to sort of guess what that means. And my guess at that is that those are the people that God is caring for. God is nurturing and supporting through every struggle, through every pain, through every difficulty. Now, in case you missed it, Jesus' sermon lists a whole bunch of folks that might not make our blessed list. Now, Jesus does not say, "Blessed are the rich, for they can buy whatever they want." Jesus does not say, "Blessed are the smart, for they will get straight A's and go to college and get a really good job." Jesus does not say, "Blessed are the winners, for they are the only ones who count, especially next week at the Super Bowl." Jesus does not say, "Blessed are the pretty, for they will have doors opened for them." Jesus does not say, "Blessed are the Christians, those who follow me, because they have it all right." Now, if that was what Jesus said, we'd be really safe and comfortable. Because society would say, "Blessed are the rich and the smart and the winners and the pretty." But instead, Jesus says what is risky. And it makes us a little bit nervous and unsettled and shakes us to the core and turns upside down what we and society might consider to be blessed. Because Jesus lists the poor and those who are mourning and those who are persecuted and those whose lives are at risk for working for peace. A few years ago, I spent the day with author Sarah Miles, and she wrote a book called Take This Bread and Jesus Freak. And she is director of ministry at St. Gregory of Nyssa Episcopal Church in San Francisco that has an amazing feeding program that takes place in their sanctuary. Not in their fellowship hall or some other feeding room, in the sanctuary. And she said something that I have never been able to forget, try as I might. And she said, "The one you are afraid of or disgusted by is the messenger of God." Those ones that we are afraid of, that we are disgusted by, that we would rather ignore, those are the ones that Jesus says are blessed. So Jesus takes what we might think and turns it right upside down. We say those who are successful and self-reliant are blessed, and Jesus says, no, blessed are those who are spiritually beaten up. We say that those who are able to escape deep pain in this life are blessed, and Jesus says, no, blessed are those who are grieving the most deeply. We say those who use others for their own good are blessed, and Jesus says, no, blessed are those who show mercy. We say those who do whatever they please are most blessed, but Jesus says, no, blessed are those who do what God requires. To do justice, to love kindness, to walk with God. And so these scriptures, they're risky and they're upsetting and they're disrupting of everything that we know to be true and what we consider that motley crew of list of people that Jesus is talking about. That list is not our list, but that list is God's list. And so, friends, Jesus is reminding us in this sermon of God's special concern for the least of these. Jesus is reminding us that God shows up in the midst of brokenness, that God's strength is made manifest in the midst of helplessness. Jesus is reminding us that we will find God in the most unexpected places, the most unexpected people, the most unexpected situations. So where is the good news in this? The good news is that when we find ourselves in the midst of brokenness, in the midst of mourning, we can know that God is there with us. But the risk of these scriptures is real also, because Jesus calls us to declare that blessedness to those around us in these situations. And in so doing, we can transform our society into God's realm, not ours. So once we know that God blesses, once we know who God blesses, we can't keep turning a blind eye to those who are mourning in our midst, because in them we'll find God. Once we know who God blesses, we can't be quiet when others are wronged, because in that situation we will find God. Once we know who God blesses, we can no longer pat ourselves on the back and be content that God blesses just us, because we know who God blesses, and we know that in them we will find God. And so, friends, we can come to church and be surrounded by those we love and be uplifted by the music and the kids running and enjoy the coffee and conversation, and that is good. But when we come to church, we also find ourselves immersed in risky scriptures. Scriptures that threaten to turn our whole worldview upside down if we hear them, if we live them. And so we can come to church and we can find comfort in our scriptures. We can know that we are blessed when we find ourselves in hard places, and that is good. But sometimes we come and we are challenged to do more. God blesses those around us who make us uncomfortable, who we fear, who we'd rather ignore, and we are called to find God in them, which means we can't stay in our little bubble. We have to go out. And yeah, we can come to church so we can easily remember what God asks of us: to do justice, to love kindness, to walk humbly with God, and we can feel good in that. But we can also be overwhelmed at the enormity of that, because God requires us to do justice and to love kindness and to walk with God in all that we do. That's huge. And so we can come to church to encounter the beauty of God in this place and the music that surrounds us and the people of love around us. But even more, we have to go out of this place, to go out and encounter God in those whom God has blessed, the unexpected ones on the streets, the restaurants, the protests, the places of work, the beaches, wherever we go. We have to be on the lookout. And so, friends, there is comfort for us when we come here, and that is good. But there is challenge for us as well. And I would say that is good too. So take the comfort, hear the challenge, and we say thanks be to God. Amen.